Hi, I'm Nicola Graham and welcome to Chewing Over High Performance. In this episode, I'll be exploring entrepreneurship and I'll be joined by Peter Grinbergs, an experienced health tech entrepreneur. But first, thanks to our sponsor, Nucal. Nucal is a comprehensive practice management system for allied health practices and clinics, ranging from large to small and multi-location. Nucal is designed to deliver both clinical and management perspectives so practitioners, practice managers, and business owners can achieve their desired outcomes. Nucal understands the importance of performance and therefore looks to deliver these results for you. Nucal would like to offer the first 100 listeners an exclusive 25% discount on their data conversion and migration for 2024. Just visit nucal.com/promotions/MSK24 to start a free trial with the coupon code MSK24 and you'll receive 25% off your first data conversion and migration. In this episode, I'm joined by Peter Grinbergs, a health tech entrepreneur. Peter graduated as a physiotherapist in 2006 and went straight into elite sport, working for Birmingham Football Club. He then set up his own private clinic, which he grew to 35 sites before it was acquired. Peter remained in the company, developing different digital health service lines, and these were primarily within the insurance and corporate health markets. He then went on to found Equal in 2019, and he is the Chief Medical Officer for this Google startup Alumni brand, which is scaling globally. I've followed Equal's journey for several years now, and I'm delighted to be able to speak to Peter today, especially on the topic of entrepreneurship that I am so passionate about. And so, Peter, what does entrepreneurship mean to you?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the very generous introduction, and it's a pleasure to be speaking to you and your followers. What is entrepreneurship? It's a very, I think it means different things to different people. I think I would start by saying that. I also think it's not, there's not a definitive answer here probably, but there are certainly, I would say two things, right? There are attributes that are common and there are also sort of traits that I think are quite common. And for me, it's an evolving thing, right? Like you can, off the bat, you can be like, okay, what do entrepreneurs do? They find novel ideas to problems that exist and they monetize them. I mean, that's probably a sort of gross way of explaining it. And in some senses, that's what we do as entrepreneurs. We're interested in problems. We're specifically interested in problems that people don't know exist, I think. And then we're interested in, well, how can we solve these problems in such a way as to create a sufficient amount of value that someone's willing to pay for it. I mean, I think that's fundamentally what it comes down to. I'm yet to find. I mean, I guess you can go down the angle of more of the kind of social side of it, and you can still do those things. But typically, if you're going to solve a problem, you need capital to do that, and so you need to find someone who's willing to invest that capital, and as a result, they're after a return, and so you need to be able to monetize. But I think, broadly speaking, that's what the job is, right? It's to find these problems and think about ways of solving them. I think the other thing so that's like the kind of bread and butter day job, right? I think what's quite interesting is like, what are the traits that exist from those people that are doing those jobs? And this is where it starts to get quite interesting because, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? Like it can mean that, some people might think, it means going into space, with Elon or, which maybe probably exclusively has happened only with entrepreneurs so far. But like, what does it actually mean? What it actually means is quite often a lot of hard work, an incredible amount of disappointment and resolve, and not, finding ways to get back up again when you've just been knocked down continuously. And this is, by the way, I'm not moaning about this, but I do think this is quite an interesting area because it's probably the side of it that people don't see so much. Is like, what does it actually mean to do that? It means that you have to be very resilient. You have to be decisive. You have to be able to have a vision that you can articulate well to other people because you need to bring them on the journey. And where does all that come from? It comes from typically a place of frustration where you've seen things going wrong or you've experienced things going wrong, and you're desperately trying to find a way to solve things that you're passionate about ultimately. And so all of these things are things that I think come into that kind of sphere of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And certainly those are some of the things that I would, when I was thinking about it, those are the things that came to the forefront of my mind, where that, yeah, it's just a lot of grinding it out and not giving up and like not taking no for an answer and being disappointed and trying to find a way out of it or find another angle to something. I mean, that's typically what it is like, kind of living. That's the lived experience of an entrepreneur, I would say.
I think that's a great insight, and like words that kind of come out from that is like curiosity, but also tenacity, stubbornness to some degree, and kind of, yeah, like not taking no for an answer. But those are not characteristics you would associate with a physiotherapist. We traditionally think empathy and kind of caring and things like that. So when did that switch happen for you, or was it always there and it evolved into more the entrepreneurship? Because yeah, they're not traits that you would normally associate when we go into a vocational kind of healthcare degree that we've both done.
Yeah, true, and that's a really good question. But I think what healthcare professionals are good at are solving problems. Like,
I agree.
They solve problems on a daily basis for patients. Every patient is a new problem, and they get very good at being able to identify what are the variables within their control to be able to create a situation where there's a solution effectively on a micro kind of basis. And I think where the other side of it comes, I mean, I was always really interested. I was just interested in I liked doing different things. I was always interested in finding new things to do. I was always interested in trying to solve complex problems. Again, that sounds like really wishy-washy and a bit like grandiose, but like, those were things that interested me. I also kind of got, from an early age, was interested in like not money from a materialistic sense, but like just the fact that, once you put your mind to something, you can actually just do stuff. Like there's no barrier there really. It's just like, just do it. Like so many people just don't do things. They think about things but don't actually do them. And I just started to realize that if you just do it, like you're already ahead of like 99% of everyone else. And actually, the more you do that, the more it's self-perpetuating, and you start to get this sense of, you can actually just change things. Like you can just say, I'm going to do something differently. We're going to create a new thing. And if you say it enough and you get the vision right, then people just will get on board with it because it's a good idea. And like you can start to do things. And that's then you're on this roller coaster then of then never actually being able to get off that is the reality.
I think it's hugely accumulative, isn't it? Because everything you do then is experience that leads to something else rather than the analysis by paralysis kind of scenario.
Exactly. But yeah, as you say, like on the face of it, it's not a common thing. But then as clinicians, as healthcare professionals, we're trained to be independent thinkers anyway. And so like it does come naturally to some extent, and we can communicate typically. And we work in multidisciplinary teams. These are all the things that actually help when you're trying to start a business, because it's like these are the things that you're doing, right? You're working in small focused teams. Everyone's got a vision. You need to kind of encourage that, thinking differently and questioning things. And like, yeah, they do in a sense lend themselves to this way of life to some extent.
Hugely transferable skills. And I wish more clinicians would notice and see actually that outside of just literally the impact they have with a patient, how transferable those skills are to different settings as well. Yeah. Most entrepreneurs, there's some stat, and I'm not going to get it completely right because I don't get stats right. I'm really bad at this. But like most entrepreneurs have usually started their first business like in like below being 20 or something like that. Did you have a little side hustle when you were a kid or something kind of going on?
Yeah, there's another funny thing, but I always, like, my parents were quite, they were very forceful with the fact that I wasn't going to get pocket money, I think, until I was like 14 or something. And I was like, I really wanted a bike. And my dad was like, well, like you have to find a way to get a bike, basically. And so me and my mate used to wash cars, but we, from a really young age, were just And then we had people that were in our little group, and we just like monopolized the whole neighborhood, and we were just walking cars all the time. But it just sort of taught me that, again, that thing of, oh, you want something enough. And again, as a kid, you want, bikes and whatever. And it's like, oh, you can just do it. Like, I mean, like that was so, it opened my eyes so much to the idea that if you just want something enough, like you can actually just elicit a change here. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. You can create a change. So that was my first ever side hustle, was washing cars. And I did that up until the point that, well, I carried on, all over the summer and got my bike, and yeah, happy days. I had a little ledger where I was writing stuff down, and I'd have my water bottle in. That's another £4 that I wanted. There's just all these little things that just taught me that idea that, yeah, these things can be done. It takes time. You have to stick to it. And if you work hard enough, then you'll get there in the end. So that was my initial kind of foray into I guess, entrepreneurship. But
yeah. You talked about kind of raising capital as part of kind of entrepreneurship. Did you raise capital as part of your physio business, or was that more when you went into kind of the digital health space?
Yeah, no, that was all organic. And I was so naive when I learned, and this is the other thing, I think I made so many mistakes. An incredible amount of mistakes were made, and I just learned, like, that's where you learn stuff. For me, you can't read books you can read books on entrepreneurship, but like, put it into practice. You have to be able to understand that mistakes are very common. It's actually a good thing. But so to get back to your question, we never raised cash. So there was probably opportunities to raise cash, and I probably should have done. But it taught me certain things about, how to look at cash flow projections and what runways are. And I didn't even know what management accounts were until I was like 7 years into running that business.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy when you think about the amount of stuff that we were doing. But yeah, that was all organic growth. No actual, capital raised for that business.
What you said, you should have raised money. Why? What do you think it gives you that does it give you an access to a different network? Does it give you the ability to scale quicker? Like, what is it that you think capital gives you?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, it lets you, it's scaling quicker. If you've got something which is scalable, which we did, I remember coming out of the football club, and it was my first job. So I was so spoiled going into that environment. But the thing that it taught me was that you can standardize healthcare. That's what we used to do. We standardise healthcare to the extent where we could dictate within days when someone's back on the pitch. So it's like you have a whole thing that you do. Everyone does the same thing, and that's the model, right? And then I remember thinking, oh, we can take this model and we can replicate this and expand, and that allowed us to grow massively. But then obviously with cash, you can fill all the bits in that we didn't have. We didn't have the right infrastructure. We didn't, there was just so many things that we just had flaws in, that actually, if we'd had smart money coming in, would have been, we could have grown the brand quicker, and we would have spent more on marketing and all of those things. That, so long as the model's good, all you have to do is then fill the engine, right? You just pour petrol into it and rev it up, and off you go. And it's kind of, that's what capital allows you to do, and take advantage of maybe a market that's moving quickly.
Yeah.
So, but do I regret it? I don't regret it, because it led me to where I am now,
Yeah.
So I can't say that I shouldn't have done it, if you know what I mean.
So I did an MBA, and one of the modules I did was out in San Francisco called Entrepreneurial Finance. And the cultural difference between San Francisco and Europe is around failure, I would say. So the VCs that we met out in San Francisco were very much like, we only invest in entrepreneurs who have failed a business, because we want to see that tenacity. We want to see that resilience to get up and go again, because then we know that whatever they hit going forward with our money isn't going to be a major block in that roadway.
Yeah.
Money and capital that you've raised with For Equal, is that generally been within the UK, or kind of have you noted what's the kind of cultural and conversations that you've had with investors?
Yeah.
Did they and I suppose the main point I'm getting at there, what do you think they're investing in? Are they investing in you as a person, or are they investing in the product?
I think it's a bit of both, but I love that mentality that and interestingly, I wish we'd had more of that when we were trying to raise cash. But and we've been, we like raising money is a crazy situation, and it is very laborious. But and it's fraught with disappointment. I mean, there's only one thing there's only one deal that that will work, right? So pretty much. So like the 90 other ones that you tried to get over the line, they all failed. And that's like, you have to pick yourself up, go again. But, and interestingly, we got rejected on the basis of having not had massively successful exits. So that was interesting. And that was an American investor, funnily enough. But what do they look for? I think, they want to be able to...
Well, so I should go back. The other thing they look for, obviously, is they invest in the same people again and again. Hence why it's like quite a small... Like, they want to see serial entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah. And who wouldn't? Like, proven recipes. And the reason for that is twofold. I think it's an interesting game, I think, from that side of it. But it's like, if you're an early investor, then what you're looking for, you're actually looking for someone that can raise subsequent rounds, because you're looking to get out. It's like, are you really interested? Yeah, you're interested in the product, but you're interested in someone who can raise subsequent rounds, and then you can take your exit if you're early. And they're in it for different reasons at different points, I think. But what do they look for? They look for people that can build teams. They look for people that are passionate and they can sell a vision. I think, and credibility. And if you don't have credibility, then how are you getting credibility? Either from previous, historical stuff, or that you're clever enough to be able to execute a runway to a certain point to then be able to get you into the next part. I suspect that's what they're looking for, and also they'll be looking for holes in the market, and do you fulfill whatever their projections are for the coming 18 months or whatever. I mean, generally speaking, that's what it's about. We really struggled to raise cash because we were getting lots of interest, but they were like, oh, this is what you're suggesting. It sounds bonkers already, but we like bonkers, so that's fine. But actually come back to us when come back to us at Series A when you've proven that it's going to work, because it's too much risk on where you are at the moment. We had a lot of that going on.
But you were pre-COVID, which obviously then from a digital perspective, you were in a perfect place for when COVID did hit.
Yeah, in a sense. What's funny about COVID is, it was obviously no one forecast COVID, but we forecast the issues that COVID exposed, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
We didn't know COVID was coming, but we knew there was a massive issue with access, that healthcare was just like so one-sided. That's the whole reason behind Equal, was to try and balance the playing field. It's like, but there's this information bias that exists where you've got all the knowledge sitting on the healthcare side, all the data points sit with the patient. It's like, how do you balance that out and how you balance that out is with significant money. Like, that's how it currently works. You have to wait a long time and it costs a lot of money to balance it out. And we were like, no, there's other ways of doing that. So we could foresee the issues pre-COVID. But yeah, I mean, obviously COVID shone a spotlight on health tech for all the wrong reasons, in a way, because it's like health service switched off. But yeah, and then that was quite an interesting process. Like, it just went crazy, obviously. Everyone's like investing in tech and they're getting 100x valuations on unproven models. And now it's swung the other way, and it's like, no, this is all rubbish. No one's making any money. It's like, where's the money? And I think now it's sort of rebalancing a little bit again, which is obviously good for the market. But I mean, you've been able to kind of ride that out, which is obviously a good thing. But yeah, it's been a very interesting 5 years, I think.
So let's go back slightly on that kind of standardizing of healthcare, because I think there's a lot of people that would find that actually a bit of a controversial kind of statement in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What is it that you think can be standardized if we go from kind of a clinical perspective, but what is the then wider economic and I suppose just like healthcare ecosystem benefit of that standardization, do you believe?
Yeah, this is such a good question, because so you said before, what, all the physios off the bat that make good entrepreneurs. We then talked about, okay, well, there's problem solving abilities which translate. The thing that doesn't translate well is like commercialization of healthcare. That doesn't translate at all with any healthcare professional, because it's like, it's a conflict. around that, because you're trying to find a way, and this feeds into the standardization question. You're trying to find a way to create a system that moves the needle for a population. Like that's
with all their individual needs.
Yeah, but like as a population, you're trying to move the needle basically. So you're looking at the problem, you're looking at a gross problem, and you're saying, okay, well, if we implement X, Y, Z, then for the overall, we get a shift towards a better experience for the majority. And obviously, that from a healthcare perspective, what does that mean? I mean, look, if you had enough. The best healthcare journey would be, if you needed a physio, is to have one sit next to you all day, and they would tell you, they would just sort of go, oh, you need to get up and move around. Now I'm going to just do some stuff over here, and like that would be the best experience you could get. You get the most up to date, personalised care, but like that's not practical, right? So the way that we look at it is to say, well, what can we do how can we create a change for most people? And that's the thing that we need to try and do here, because actually that's the thing that's most equitable, that's most inclusive, that's cost effective and not cost prohibitive, so that it means that most people can benefit. So the standardization part is around trying to create a situation where that exists. So you're looking at it globally and saying, okay, well, we shift. If we make a shift this way, if we increase access to everyone, then we reduce the barrier to entry, and therefore we get people earlier in the pathway, and then we can elicit more therapeutic effects, and we can get them out quicker because we've got them earlier, and it's then therefore cheaper, and people get a better experience. Like that's kind of now that's not going to work for everyone.
No.
And I think one of the things we've been able to do well, I think, is not be like, we were never of the opinion that we should be ideological about a certain process. So yeah, digital tech is great, but if you don't want to use it, then like there should be another option. And we've been really good, I think, at being able to find ways of incorporating the whole pathway, all of the outcomes that people need, into a model where we've got this nice trifecta effect of having patients being benefited, clinicians benefiting, and then ultimately payers being able to find efficiency. And then exposing all of that from a data perspective to say, look, this is what it all looks like. You look at it yourself and make a decision. And we find that by having this sort of value-based approach, like that keeps us honest, keeps us true to the fact that we have to do a good job for everyone where we can, and we expose all the data. And I think there are ways of standardizing, but also then being able to expose, the results and getting everyone comfortable with it, and ultimately saving problems for people across all those different domains, if you see what I mean.
The bit that I get out of that, which I like, is around transparency of what can and can't be achieved. I think the reason I moved out of public health systems, and that I struggle with still now, is in some ways the lack of reality of the challenges, and therefore there's sometimes the feeling, like what you talked about there, the ideal of having a physio kind of, well, yeah, lovely, completely unrealistic. But I still feel there's sometimes an unrealistic belief in what we can even deliver as a public healthcare service. Yeah. And I would welcome more data points and information. Like I used to joke that I would have loved, with your end of year kind of tax self-assessment, tell me what I've cost you as a country. Tell me tell me the year I had emergency C-sections for my babies, like how much did that cost? Because I have no idea. Because then someone goes to access, for example, a private healthcare service, and they're like shocked by the price. And it's like, yeah. Well, they're only shocked because they think it's zero, the other end of the scale. And of course it's not. There's a cost to all of it, but yeah. There's a lack of transparency about what even the public healthcare services cost. And therefore it's a lack of information overall for people to make informed decisions.
Yeah, and this is it. This is the information bias. This is like where this kind of thing, this is exactly the thing. It's like, yeah, it should be like, in an ideal world, the data should be free flowing. Again, look, I know there's loads of things that could create issues with this data, et cetera, but in an ideal world, the data is freely available. People can make decisions at the right point, and like healthcare is about data transfer. Like that's what it's about, basically. So like in an ideal world, that would exist, and I think that's why we like the value-based models, and that's why we try. We always try to create models where we take the risk. It's like, look, we'll de-risk it for you as a payer. We'll take all the risk. Now it's on us to deliver. Like we have to deliver now, and that's the right way that it should be. Like we are the ones that should take responsibility, and therefore we back ourselves to be able to provide a benefit to the population as a whole. And that's why I think the value-based models are the right approach. I know, like they died a death a little bit in the US because of people that fell under the bus trying to deliver those. But I do still think that is the right way to deliver healthcare. Like it should be about value return.
Yeah. Well, what other kind of service or industry do you not have to show performance? We're basically talking about performance in some. Yeah. So it's got to be kind of outcome delivered, not just service delivered, as in like I'm not just delivering a service. There's got to be a outcome that is measurable as a result of that isn't a waiting list or isn't just a kind of a numbers game.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what's great about being a disruptor in that space is that there's a lot of space to disrupt with traditional fee for service models. Where, let's be honest, that is historically the way that things were done. So no issue with the model, but it does create a situation where who's necessarily vested in the outcome. And I'm not, again, this is nothing about doing fee for service. We did it at the physio clinic, but everyone's not aligned in that model. There's you're creating value for all the different stakeholders, and everyone's aligned in making sure it works. And if you can position yourself well in that, you're going to win, basically. Whereas in a fee-for-service model, it's easier to hide behind, the potential value that's being created and evidence it, because it's just a one-and-done situation. It's like you've been paid, that's the end of it. I don't need to worry about showing you value.
Yeah. So just for my own clarity, really, your clinics, your bricks and mortar kind of clinics that you grew.
Yeah.
Would you say that you standardized treatment there or standardized things or not? It's only when you moved into the digital health space that it was standardized?
No, we had a way we had a standard approach to certain things. Like when I talk about standardization, it was about the messaging. It's about the communication style, the messaging, the service that you would receive, to try and keep it, like you're building a brand. So like you can't have a brand where you've got representatives talking about different things. Like that doesn't work. So there was that element, but also, we had centralized training that we ran. And this is quite common now, I think. It's not unusual, but we had centralized training that we ran that, talked about not only how to manage patients from a physical perspective, but how you manage them, how you manage expectations. And from a treatment angle perspective, it's one of those, you kind of, when you see the things that work, particularly in that, I was coming from that elite sport environment where, there were certain things that we got exposed to, which were like, these are the things that work really well for certain things, certain situations. And so we'd replicate that in the private space, and it worked. We treated a lot of people over the years. I know people would frown at that. But then again, it's like, I think if there are things that do work, then you should. Why would you not use them?
Yeah. And so then moving into the digital health space, was that more around impact and scale? Like it's not like we know that there's a limit to what bricks and mortar can achieve from a scale perspective. Yeah,
it was that, but it was also just the realization that I just couldn't get my head around. I couldn't get my head around this idea that, again, in the sporting environment, you watch someone get injured, you manage all their stuff, and 4 weeks later they're better. You go into the private space and certainly into public health, it's like, how long does it take you just to get an opinion? And then actually, if you know about the injury cycle, it's like actually like a fixed cycle. And the only reason that it gets delayed is because there's like a break in the chain somewhere. So we were like, well, actually, if you can get someone early, give them the option around the things that are best for them, lots of people can self-manage, and lots of people are willing to do that, right? Like, this is the other thing, but it's like, give them that option, and we know that, you know, we should have a good chance of getting them better within a short period of time. Like, and I couldn't get my head out of that not being the case, and I just became obsessed with how do we create a solution that gets back to more what my earlier experience was in elite sport, where, you know, typically people would say, oh, you can't do it because you haven't got elite athletes and you haven't got billions of pounds and you can't like scan them every 4 minutes. So, but we were sort of like, I think there is a way you can move the needle towards that. And so that's what we would, that's where the kind of passion came for technology. And then with technology, it's binary. You know what it's doing all the time.
Takes away the noise. Have you read the book Noise?
I haven't read the book Noise, but yeah.
It's a great one. And it's a lot around medical and health and kind of how the biases that we kind of don't even know that we have as practitioners, really. The difference between seeing someone before you've had your lunch and after you've had your lunch and how you behave.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Oh, it sounds great, like right up my street. But yeah, all of that. You know, I wasn't rushing back to, you know, managing 70 physios again. Like, I'd kind of done that, and I was like, okay, I never want to do that again. So it's like, well, with tech, you don't get that, do you? Like, you don't get that with tech. And so it's all of those things that kind of were just like, yeah, and also it's like a big problem. Like, it's just like you can't have 7 million people sitting on a waiting list.
No.
Like, until that's not the case, there's a problem that you should try and solve. And like, technology is a great way of being able to level the playing field, like this whole thing, give people access, level the playing field, allow them to make choices, you know, and by the way, if you get them really early in the process, you get a much better outcome. And also, by the way, people are very much wanting to do that. They want, there's an assumption that people just want to go see physios. Great if you want to go see someone. We don't stop anyone doing that. But it's like lots of people just are happy to consume, you know, self-management immediately. It happens in personal training, happens in all sorts of other areas, but people just weren't given the option. So we were keen to just give people the option, be like, look, you want to just do this straight away, you can do it if you want, or you can just go see someone, it's fine. And that was our approach, I suppose.
So you've had a huge amount of kind of, I suppose, like learning, experimentation, like customer consumer insights in that time. What's the least expected thing that you have found out in the last, what now, kind of 5 years of having Equal?
Yeah. So I thought, I was thinking about this one as well. I kind of, it's a hard one because I generally have a rule where I'm like, never get surprised about anything.
Okay.
Like, interrogate everything and interrogate the downside of every situation to such a point that you can anticipate any potential option here and have an angle on every option. Like, that's sort of how my mind is doing things. But that said, when we talked about COVID, but again, even that was like, we predicted the thing, not COVID, we predicted the issues that would arise.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get away from the fact that generative AI has, like, what is happening there is not even a step change. It's like, that is an astronomical unlocking of power that's happened in the last 18 months.
Which has been to your benefit as well, because you are an AI product.
I mean, it's commoditized AI is what it is. There were lots of people that we were building stuff, we built stuff, we're still building stuff that were using various approaches. And it's like, oh, okay, suddenly now the barrier to entry is non-existent with certain approaches. Generative AI is obviously just an approach, but I think it has, it's commoditized it. It's available to everyone, to all. It's democratized, that whole kind of democratization of AI, but that's what it's done. So I wasn't surprised, you know, we knew those things were in the working. I have been surprised at the acceleration of the power. Not necessarily the harnessing of it yet, but just the acceleration of what is now possible. Like, that has been a surprise to some extent.
I think that leads really nicely onto what, in some ways, around leadership. Like, you're a visionary. Like, you it's not like, there's obviously different types of leadership, but you're a visionary leader in what you've described and what I know about you. Where do you see that future going? And also feel free to correct me wrong if you don't think you're a visionary leader.
Kind of you to say so. No, I kind of. I think, to be fair, I'm better. Like I've learned that I'm not a manager necessarily of people or teams. And I work well with people that are motivated and passionate about things that we're doing. But I think, but vision is important. Like I do have a strong image in my head of what things will look like, and I can see a road through what is sometimes a very fragmented kind of pathway. And so I do see my job as being able to not only get other people on board with that, but like disseminate that in a way that they can understand and get them motivated about it, and want them to, not that I have to work that hard with the people that we work with because we've got a great team, but like that is my job really. It's like, okay, we're going on this journey, and like let's think about different things and what are the angles that we need to create of certain situations that might unfold, and being like abreast of all of those things. So that I do see that as being my job really. Where does it all end up? Like that is, I mean, where I would like it to end up is, I think healthcare is way too reactive. It's all about solving things after it's the problem. It should be more of a proactive experience in my mind, and I would like to. That's where I would like to see it. There are issues with that, I think, because historically the system is not set up to accommodate that necessarily. It may be not maliciously, not maliciously, but it might not be certainly in everyone's interest. There's an economy around delivering healthcare. Like it's sort of quite a bit of a murky kind of, again, not to say that this is a malicious intent, but like it is,
it's that lack of transparency still of who works for who, or what the whole. I did an episode with Angela around who is the customer in healthcare, and it's what you're alluding to. Is it my customer is a private clinic? When I've got a Bupa contract, is actually Bupa. It's not the patient sitting in front of me in that room. And so understanding those different stakeholder relationships and how that whole ecosystem work is still to be, I think, made clearer for everyone. Yeah,
and that, I would love to see a transition that way, and we're obviously doing our best to also do that. I think healthcare. I mean, what we're seeing is consolidation of pathway management. I think that's something that's definitely happening, where it's like, and that's just natural thing of like people trying to find more value in what they're doing. So it's like, we do this one thing, but now we're going to do this other thing, and because we need to add value, or we're being driven down on price, and so we need to find something else. And that's like, that will naturally happen until like you get more of this kind of end-to-end thing, which is, to be fair, what we're trying to do, or what we are doing. But I think there'll be more of consolidation across the pathway. I think there'll be more personalised care will certainly be a thing, because it's all data. That's all just based on data. And as the ability to analyse data gets better, things become more personalised. You're already seeing that in loads of other things, like nutrition, fitness, a whole range of like media, whatever, banking, investment. Like it's all becoming more tuned to the individual, and that will happen with healthcare as well. I'd love to see VR and MR get off the ground. I don't know if there's a place for it, or there hasn't been a place for it for 30 years. So, but I would love to kind of get interested in that space. I think that there's some interesting things there potentially. How consumable it is the issue, I think. But yeah, more personalised, more consolidation, more choice. Less friction. Like this is what tech will bring to healthcare, I think, for good reason.
If you had to kind of put yourself back to potentially some of our listeners who are either newly grad as a physio, or kind of within their first few roles as a physio, if you, not advice, because I never like advice really, but if you had like one thought around, if you can't take yourself back because it's a different context kind of thing, but where things are going forward, and either around skill sets or learnings or insights, where would you be directing people to think about? And I know that's woolly, but it's meant to be.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, I think I wouldn't advocate, what's the direction, and you should think about this as a direction, because I think part of what we do, part of what we do is like we're looking for new things. We're looking for different angles on things. So to forecast and say it's going that way and therefore you should double down on that, it's more like no. You should be thinking like you should try and think broadly about problems, and don't get worried about what other people are doing. Just think about the problem and just try and think about whether or not there are ways through that. I mean, that's certainly something that I would say. I don't think. I mean, the best advice that I give myself is like when things are just really bad. That's not a bad thing either. Like you just grind. Like just get comfortable being uncomfortable where you are. It's terrible the situation that you're in, maybe, or you're up against it, and it could be going on for a very long period of time. All of the things that I've done have come out of those situations. I've come out of like being literally digging myself into a hole that I just can't get out of. And then I'm there for months sometimes, and suddenly there's something that just clicks, and it's like you see a different angle, and like, so just, that's fine. If you're in those positions, it's fine. If you don't know what you're doing, that's fine. Just be comfortable with those things. But then I do think there are certain things like being decisive. Like just listen to your gut reaction. Like the amount of times I've told myself I knew that was going to happen. I just didn't. I've literally let this happen, and I knew it was going to happen. It's like it's happened a lot. It happens too often, and it's like you just stick to what you know and be decisive and don't take yourself too seriously. Like it's not. Life is not that serious, really. Like we're all doing things that are. Yeah, high impact, but like don't just check yourself into the box and be like, look, unfortunately you're not Elon Musk, but even if he can take himself that seriously, but like just keep yourself grounded, I think, and don't panic.
One of the aspects that from an entrepreneurship that I like that you just mentioned there, because I think this is a lot of people, especially in private practice, with the pressures of let's say uninflated private medical insurance remunerations and things, it becomes this market milking. And what I really, really love, and the aspect that you've talked about quite a lot there, is market making. So make your own market, like do something different, do something that is that is lateral thinking, or have a curiosity to a problem that is facing you, rather than doing the same thing, because then it just becomes a race to the bottom. And that's the bit that I think most people are frustrated and burnt out about in healthcare. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. That's the thing.
Peter, it's been amazing. If people wanted to pick up a conversation with you or on any aspects of this, where will they find you?
So like LinkedIn is normally where I hang out. I don't get on Twitter because I just never have, really. But like, I'm always open for conversations with anyone, because I just always find it interesting talking to people about anything. So like, you can just reach out to me via LinkedIn. I think that's the only, or like hang around outside my house, and maybe
maybe they'll find you on your walkie-talkies when you're.
Maybe they'll find them. Yeah, check out the walkie-talks. Yeah.
Maybe the walkie-talks become a face-to-face, not just a LinkedIn little post.
Who knows where that'll go? Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Peter. Really, really great to chat to you.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Nicola.
Well, that is the end of episode 6 of Chewing Over High Performance, and I loved that conversation with Pete. Entrepreneurship, I think, is fascinating. The ability for us to solve problems, but also to pick ourselves up when things go wrong and to face those challenges. It's never going to be a straight road. And I think the ability to kind of have those honest conversations is really, 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 really empowering for everyone. So thank you also to our sponsor, Nucor, who has sponsored this series, and for your support for the MSK industry. And in our final episode of Chewing Over High Performance that will go live in August, I will be joined by Dr. George Bounds. He is a sports and exercise medicine consultant, and we're going to be discussing the topic of why medicine should lean more into wellness. So I look forward to bringing you that conversation in August.